what about if God created everything and he designed us? It would seem that the design would have to be perfect. Mm-hmm. But as it is, we're wearing glasses. Right? So apparently the design isn't perfect. So what would you say to that?
I actually like your glasses better than mine.
Oh, thank you.
It's changing.
Oh. Whoa.
I don't know. I kind of like mine too now, actually. They're good on you. So sometimes what people will do when it comes to this design argument, the pushback, and I try to cover this in the book, is that, well, wait a minute. If you're saying God is the designer, then why do we see imperfection in design? And wouldn't we assume that all imperfection in design would be eliminated if God is in fact the designer? And sometimes, for example, one of the things that's offered is the panda's thumb. There's actually a website called the panda's thumb that kind of makes this argument. The panda's thumb is a terrible design, according to most of the skeptics, because it's not opposable. It seems like it's out there and it really can't do much. You can't hold anything with the panda's thumb. So the question we really have is remember one thing. As Christians, we believe in evolution of sorts. We do, if you think about it. We believe in change over time within the species. Look at all the diversity in this room right now. There's an incredible amount of human diversity in this room, yet all of us are so allegedly, according to Christianity, the product of two sources, Adam and Eve, right? And then this another funnel point occurs at the flood where now suddenly it's Noah and his 3 sons and their 3 wives that become the next funnel point for all. Yet look at all the diversity. So I don't think you could take a snapshot of Adam and Eve. They would look very different than a snapshot of us today, any marriage couple today. Why? Because over time, the environment, and we've been designed with enough flexibility in our genome to adapt to our environment. Now, we're not going to adapt so much that we'll be a giraffe in 5 generations or whatever, 5 million generations. But the point is, we have enough flexibility in our genome to adapt. So sometimes when you take a picture of whatever it is today, the panda, for example, just the same way the picture of any pair of us does not give us an accurate picture of Adam and Eve, the optimal design, the original design, before entropy and environment and all the other stuff plays on the species, that would not be an accurate picture of Adam and Eve. And today's panda is not an accurate picture of what may have been the first panda anymore. Because we know that over time, the environment does have an effect. And we are in a fallen world. We would expect that under Christianity. So in the end, we end up, number one, making the mistake of saying, well, your eyeball, the way it is today, was part of the optimal design. Well, how do you know that? How could you ever know that? That's a kind of an assumption, isn't it? Also, the next thing is, well, how do you know what it is that God had designed this thing for? Yeah, you're right. That the panda cannot hold a bottle of water or a Monster drink, which I like to drink in the afternoons. Okay, I'll just be honest. Energy drinks. A panda cannot hold an energy drink given that panda's thumb is not opposable. But that's not what the panda is supposed to do with that hand. If the panda is supposed to use that hand to strip bamboo, which is its primary source of food, that's an excellent thumb. It does exactly what it ought to do. So in other words, we kind of import what we expect God to be trying to achieve, and that may not be what God's trying to achieve anyway. And then we also assume that whatever form we have today was the optimal original design, which isn't necessarily the case.
So do I hear you say that you can't really talk about perfect design per se, but we're talking about optimal design?
Optimal design, yes. Right. And every time any design, I can tell you that I used to have a slide where I would show my master's thesis was a law and fire facility in Santa Barbara. That was my graduate work. We designed this huge building that was a whole city block long. And man, I wanted certain design features that I really wanted because it would line up certain towers certain way on the building. But because I knew I had to accomplish certain design features, I had to make modifications to get the optimal design, which was always an act of compromise. I'm here to tell you, if you've ever designed is a continual act of compromise to achieve the optimal design in which one feature is always being compromised for the benefit of some other thing you're trying to achieve. That is just the nature of design. Because it's the base nature of design, you can't violate it. This is the case with us too. So to say that it's perfect, well, what do you really mean by perfect? What you really mean is optimal, and then that's the art of compromise. That's just the nature of design.
So, for example, your laptop, which was here just a minute ago. It's portable, but it doesn't have the kind of computing power of, say, the NASA supercomputer.
Right.
But NASA's supercomputer is way too big to carry around, but it has lots of horsepower.
Sure.
So it's a bit of a give and take.
And you know that even when you try to design anything on your own, and if you ever try to build something, you know you're always compromising either something you're trying to, it's cost, or it's you're doing 5 of these, it's expediency, it's whatever it may be, but it's really about the optimal design in that environment, which is not going to be perfect in some other environment. So I think these are the kinds of choices we typically think, well, couldn't God just make all, look, God, I guess you could say God could do a lot of things. God could actually make it so you never have to make a free choice to accept him. You could immediately be born with belief. But what if God's actually trying to achieve something in you based on the way he's designed us? What if he's trying to achieve something in the freedom we have, the freedom to make mistakes, the freedom to actually mess up our environment and create some bad designs 5 generations down the road, right? Because of how we live in our environment. But there's some benefit to us that exceeds the impact on design. So I think it's just impossible to kind of play that game where you think you know the mind of God, number 1. You think you know what's perfect versus optimal, number 2. And you think you have the actual creature you're examining and evaluating, that this eyeball was the same design as the optimal eyeball in Adam. That's a mistake to make.